framework. In section 5.3, health relationships, number 9 describes the differences between assigned sex at birth and gender identity and explain how one's outward appearance and behavior does not define one's gender identity or sexual orientation. In section 5.6, sexual health explains the difference between sexual intercourse and human reproduction. This framework, in my opinion, is inappropriate for this age group. We are talking about 3rd graders here. My son still plays with cars and takes tubbies. Not only do I feel it's inappropriate, but I think it's unacceptable and unnecessary. I think children at this age should be able to express themselves in a variety of ways without labeling themselves or questioning their identity. Thanks to Governor Healy, the state is strongly favoring her policies. I am quoting a press release that came out September of last year stating, Massachusetts is leading the way by providing a health and physical education framework that is inclusive medically, accurate, and age appropriate to help and that make decisions that are right for health and well-being, said Governor Maura Healey. And I think we really need to ask ourselves, how far do we want to push their agenda on our children? I don't know about some of the other parents, but I want to preserve my child's innocence for as long as possible. We should be teaching our children that everyone is different, and it's important to be kind to everyone no matter what they look like, at least until they're old enough to mentally grasp these concepts. In the presentation by the state, it shows teachers and administrators will be having training on this topic this summer. So I come to this board asking as a parent, how do we receive transparency on this curriculum and how it's being chosen and taught to our children? What are the roles as a parent in formulating this curriculum? Speaking for myself, I would like to participate and understand exactly what is being taught. I know opting out is an option, but I mean, when all your peers are being taught that, it really defeats the purpose. So thank you for listening. I look forward to further discussions.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else for public comment? Welcome. Just state your name at the microphone. Thank you.
My name is Erin Myers, and I brought my daughter, Madden, who's a freshman at the high school. And we were wondering if we could get some clarification on any policy that the school or the district has on taking online courses on your own to further your studies. We've been told we are not allowed to do this.
This isn't, unfortunately, with public comment.
Mhm.
You can state a question. We can certainly go back to Dr. Hallett and get that answer
Okay, so
for you.
we're looking for any type of policy, any notes that we can get so that we can figure out what our next step is.
If I may, through the chair, I will
Yes.
respond to you if you wouldn't mind sending your email
Sure.
request to me, and I will respond to you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming tonight. Thank you as well, Ms. Chop. Anybody else have public comment? Okay. Well, thank you. Seeing I will close public comment and go straight to the superintendent's report, please.
Okay, good evening. So lots to celebrate these past few weeks since we last met. We had a lot of end of year celebrations, and there are still some to come. On Thursday, June 13th, we celebrated baccalaureate with seniors. It was a lovely ceremony with several speakers who provided words of wisdom from the community, but also from some teachers within the school, as well as some students who also shared some special poetry. Really lovely, and it's such a special time and very reflective time for students to be there and consider what's going to happen in the next day, which is the graduation ceremony. On the 14th, there was a Flag Day celebration and a Citizens Award celebration at NES, and it was lovely to see the students receiving awards for best good citizen in their grade, and that was very exciting. And some music and just general celebration around Flag Day, which was lovely. We had a very successful graduation with 125 graduates walking across the stage. And then the next day, another great celebration in town with the boys lacrosse team winning the state champions against Sandwich. This is the first in history, so such a special thing, with a fairly impromptu parade, but really a great opportunity for the town to roll out and celebrate our boys lacrosse. So that was very special. We had another parade yesterday for the seniors in town. Again, another celebration of their achievement. We have had numerous field days and have a few more planned in the remaining days that are with us. We've had some jump up days, 5th to 6th grade, 2nd to 3rd grade, and 8th to 9th, which have been successful. Pre-K promotion has happened, and kindergarten promotion as well. So exciting to send off our littlest folks to their next grades. And 8th grade promotion ceremony will be at 9 o'clock on Friday. And finally, 2nd grade and 5th grade clap outs will happen at the very end of the day on Friday, which is a half day. So lots to celebrate still, and lots that has been celebrated. So this is the stressful but exciting time of the end of the year. So that's it for graduation and end of year celebrations. To give you a little update on recruitment and hiring, we are still very busy in reviewing our applications and interviewing for all of our open positions. We started with about 29 open teaching positions, and we've been able to hire 16 of the 29 so far. Most of them are classroom teachers in the elementary and intermediate schools, but we have chipped away at some of the positions in middle and high school as well. We do have some excellent candidates coming our way, and the interviewing is definitely in full swing. We have probably about 7 teachers on deck that just need to meet with me and set salary and then move forward in looking for housing. But we're in a good place there. Still struggling, or not struggling, but still finding that our most difficult positions for hiring are special education. There are 3 open positions right now across the district. High school and middle school. STEM is also quite a challenge. We are still looking for a school psychologist and a physical therapist as well. So those pieces are always challenging, not just in our district but across the state. I know that we will be able to fill these positions in the coming weeks. We're working very diligently in interviewing, and I thank the leadership team for all of the work they've done, both principals, assistant principals, and directors in moving forward with our hiring. And that is all for now. I have one additional update, which we will share as soon as the celebrated comes to see us.
Understood. Esmeralda, any questions?
No questions.
Comments? Laura?
No questions, thank you.
Tim?
I think with all the parades, the tourists sort of think we're like Disney World. Every afternoon we have a parade.
Yeah. Well, what should we do next week?
We need the marching band.
Dr. Leopard, I'm working on it, if I may through the chair. I'm
Yes,
working
you
on
may.
it.
Okay.
We started with the pep band, and we've got a good music program that's marching directly towards the marching band.
We'll get there.
It's great.
Well, thank you. So we'll move on to presentations and discussions, and I'd like to invite Suzanne Franzito and Laura Steele, please, to come up. And they are representing CPAC. Good evening.
Hi, good evening.
Welcome.
Hello, can you hear us?
Yes.
Thank you for having us. I'm Laura Steele. This is Suzanne Franzuto, and we are the CPAC, which is the Special Education Parent Advisory Committee. This year we rebranded from the Special Needs Advisory Council to be a little bit more in keeping with other CPACs, to be more inclusive and to reach a broader audience. Special needs has a different connotation, I think, than special education. So, and I think a lot of parents sometimes think, oh, my child doesn't have a special need, but we really want to make sure that it's inclusive to everybody and focus on differences rather than disabilities. This year we had some challenges and some successes, and we appreciate the opportunity to share them with you now. We usually present to you a little earlier in the year, but just due to scheduling, we're here at the last meeting, and I think it's actually good because we're able to talk about what we did all year. So, turn it over to Suzanne.
So I'm going to start with some of the challenges, and nothing that we've faced is like insurmountable. We start out with something and we think it's going to work, we think it's what the people want, and it's kind of like, you know, your kid 1 year, he likes those shirts, and then 2 months later you go and buy them and they won't even wear them. We had some of that. Our biggest challenge continues to be attendance. We offer our meetings in person, hybrid, and we have a Spanish translation person available. And we're just not getting the numbers. We sent out a survey, you know, like, what are you looking for? How can we help you? And didn't get a whole lot of surveys
6.
back, yeah. Our page on the school website is woefully out of date. And I know that's, you know, there's a lot of initiatives and things that have to be done in the school. So we're hoping that we can get that taken care of this year within the school system to help with that. Because I know that if like you're new to a district or something and you want to look and see, well, what do they have? And you look and it's something that's like really out of date, it's not a good look. Another big challenge, especially for as our kids get older, is the lack of social and real work opportunities and not just contrived situations. And so we're trying to partner with some groups on the Cape who have community inclusion going, and see if we can beef that up a little bit. And here's one that's been going on forever, the lack of ABA services on Nantucket. The island's been through several agencies and individuals, and it's a revolving door. And I know that as a behavioral technician, like one of the hardest things for me was that you couldn't start until after school, because most of your kids were school age. And it was like, so how many are you going to see between 3 and 6 or 7? And so that was like a real deterrent if people needed to, you know, have another job earlier in the day. Our best intentions of having members of our group, or even some of the officers, attend school committee meetings, coffees, things like that, just didn't, you know, people's schedules were all over the place, and that just didn't happen. So that's one of the areas that we're really working on for next year. And Laura's going to talk about some of our successes, and then I'm going to jump back in moving forward, what we've got planned.
Thank you.
So, you know, one of the things that we're most excited about that we started this year was a collaboration with Martha's Vineyard CPAC. And that was through Martha's Vineyard Community Services, which, if you don't know, services both Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard. And if you haven't had an opportunity to meet with Angela Knapp or experience their group, they are fantastic. Just as a side note, I mean, for my kids, they will be proactive in saying, "Oh, did you know that you have this available to you? You know, let me help you get that set up." Okay, you know, they're really fantastic. So they kind of initiated that, and we have 2 meetings of the mind each year, where it's generally just a Zoom meeting, so we can all be on, and we've had great attendance at those because we have had a good number of Martha's Vineyard people join us, as well as a few other Nantucketers that come to that. We have had a variety of engaging guest speakers, including Janine Fitzgerald, who did a presentation on called Children in the Shadows about anxiety, which seems to be so prevalent. And I think, again, a lot of parents don't necessarily realize that we could be a resource for them if their kid only has anxiety as compared to, you know, some diagnoses or even an IEP. You don't have to have an IEP to come to our meetings, or just take advantage of the resources that we're trying to share. BCBA, Shane Schofield presented on what is ABA, and how applied behavior analysis works, and some of the challenges of finding them. So, Jennifer Christensen, who's a transition specialist, spoke about the transition services for our kids that are age 14 going up. Priscilla Graham presented on cranial sacral therapy for a neurodivergent population in children, and I can speak from firsthand experience because I've had her work on me, and she's worked on my child who has anxiety, and it has done a lot to really just kind of calm things down with him. That's sort of her specialty, so that was really cool to have her be able to explain in her words how that works so well. Carrie Ray from Nantucket Star presented on their wide array of sports and therapeutic recreational opportunities. And there's a lot of great stuff that they are offering all the time. And then we had David Hayes and Lisa Zach from the Family Resource Center spoke about all the different services that they provide. And I feel like I'm pretty in tune with kind of the resources, but I was still pretty blown away with everything that they can do. I mean, if you have an issue, you go to them and they'll help you find the resources for it, or they can help you directly themselves. And they do have this great In the Herd program where it doesn't have to any child can. They will pay for their ticket off island. They will drive them to a stable. They will hang out with horses for the day, and they will bring them back on the boat, and it's all free and feed them lunch. And it's really, I was surprised that wasn't completely filled up every single time. So love to get the word out about that program. I think they're running it in the summer too. So if you've got some kids that aren't quite sure what you're doing on some days, I would recommend looking up In the Herd. Because it's a really neat program. But they are able to help with a lot of things, everything from food insecurity to, social issues to, really you name it. I think they're a great resource if you don't know where to go. So our purpose is to try to share as much information as we can with our community, the community. And if we reach one parent who says, wow, I didn't know about that, then we feel like we've been a success. I will say I'd like to reach more than one. This year we had one parent really who was new. It was like every meeting she was like, wow, how did I not know about this? And that keeps us going. But I'd sure love to have 50 parents say, wow, I didn't know about this.
So looking back on our challenges, our successes, what can we do better? What can we do differently? So some of the things we're putting into play for the fall, starting in the fall, are CPAC office hours. There's going to be a phone number and dedicated, would be probably 2 days a week in certain times. The parents can call in and ask questions. If they have a question, maybe they're looking for a resource that might not be available on the island, or maybe they're looking for I'm looking for this kind of doctor or whatever for my kid. How can you help? And because Laura Kabadi and I, Laura's our secretary, we're both Mass Family Leadership trained. So we have a lot of resources available to us, and we want to help and spread that around. We're going to continue our outreach and collaboration. We've done some things with the community school, with Martha's Vineyard Community Services and STAR. Those programs have all been successful. And we're rolling out a parent mentor program. So if a parent wants to maybe pick the brain of another parent, maybe their child has the same diagnosis, or maybe they're just going through, what's next? Then they can call during CPAC office hours, and we can match them with someone who's been through there, walked that path already. Laura has a son who's still in high school and one who's going on to college. My son's 25. I've been through the transition process. I've been through what happens when they're 18. If you don't have that healthcare proxy, the doctor or the hospital doesn't have to tell you anything if they get brought in. Forms, just things that will help in the transition adult services, because it's not automatic and it's not easy. So if we can just start with the littlest ones and go all the way, somebody might get a new diagnosis, and even though it's being explained by the school and the liaison and everything, there's just what can I expect? Mm-hmm. And maybe they just need somebody to vent to, and so we're going to roll that out in fall. We're pretty excited about that.
We've all had Sherpas, so we're happy to help someone else be up the hill.
And so that's where we're going to start.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Would you just stay there for a minute so we could take questions?
Sure.
Tim?
The healthcare proxy is something I hadn't thought of. I mean, we see that all the time with the adults. Push comes to shove and you don't know who to call. But I think it's important, looking at those kids in that age group, that they should have something so that you guys can be informed.
Esmeralda?
I do have a few questions. I was going to ask what ABA services were, but then it got answered. Your second segment. Have we ever had that service? I know you said lack of ABA services. Have we ever had an
Provider.
applied?
We have, there's been companies that have been on island, and also the school. We have had ABA.
Okay.
Yeah.
Second question. In the herd, what ages?
All ages.
All ages.
All ages. My 16-year-old went, and they tried to group them by age.
Okay.
So I mean, I don't know how young they went, but I'm pretty sure that it was little. They had some littles.
Yeah.
I will say my son was the oldest of his group, but he didn't care. He was just happy to go play with horses. And they don't get to ride them, but they
Okay.
brush them and they groom them. And horses have a slower heart rate than humans, so it's naturally calming.
Okay.
And he just bonded with this horse that was blind
Can
in
a
one eye.
parent
and-
join?
They can, yes.
can.
Yes. So they have you can go as a chaperone. What they said is if you go as a chaperone, then they want you, you can meet the horses, but then they want you to sit back and not participate, like watch, but they don't want you to participate. Or you can go shopping for the day and come back, with your kids. So you can do that. But it does encourage some independence,
And my final question, when are your meetings?
They are the third Wednesday of every month, and we do them in the high school conference room, and it's available on, we've been doing Zoom, but we're transitioning over to Google Meets for next year, so people can be in person or not.
Got it. Thank you. That's all the questions I have. Great.
Laura?
What organizations are you seeking to partner with on the Cape?
There is a woman, her name is Marie Younger of Blackburn, and she has a huge community inclusion. She's actually just come out with a guide, and her son goes, he's past like the senior, he's not 22 yet, but he's past like the 12th grade, and he participates in music, theater. And it's not like, oh, here come the kids with the special needs. He is included. They coach and they work so that it's real. So it's a real opportunity. And he's also started. She has some people who are helping young people start businesses.
Wow.
It might be something simple like mowing lawns, or one young man is baking, and he's delivering these baked goods to individuals and to places, and another one is dog walking. So these are things that that can be done, and they can they're part of the community.
So is she looking to integrate the young people in different businesses on the Cape? That's her role?
Yes,
I
and
see.
that's what she's doing. Yeah.
Yeah, so I feel like, I remember, I love your presentation. I look forward to it. There's so much that you all are doing, and I think we're still in the same place where people don't know. And I wonder, do you have an Instagram account? Do you have a presence on social media?
We have a Facebook page, but
Mhm.
one position that we weren't able to fill with our bench is I wanted to have a media person who would just
Right.
who would just do that. And I'm
Hopefully in September.
Yeah.
if we can get, I would love to have somebody who on the committee would take that on, because
Mhm.
I try to post things if something big is happening, but it's so sporadic, and working full time
No, it's
to
hard.
my day job, I
Right.
don't have the bandwidth to stay on top of that. So I would
Mhm.
love somebody who to take that on, because I think we could reach more. And I do know that when we've had meetings, that we really you know, it was a big deal where we really blasted it out there. We did get some more presence because I think that,
Mm-hmm.
you know, people might see the, you know, the email that goes out and just
Right,
don't pay
right.
attention.
And it does make a difference.
It
and
does.
if you're tagging and
Yeah.
all of that. But
Yeah.
I mean, I think, you know, I admire the work that you're doing, and it would be
Yeah.
wonderful if more people knew.
Yeah.
So thank you.
My question is, I'm presuming you've got some sort of flyer or leaflet that goes, that Deb Gately is meeting with families, new families
Mhm.
into the district.
Yes, and it
Okay,
goes out with the
it goes
family
out.
packet. So it went out last year with all of the, to all the families who had IEPs, correct? Yeah, so,
Could it go out to families that have 504? I know there's a
yeah,
lot
I think
know-
so. It was all
yeah.
everybody
Yeah.
in the special needs.
Yeah.
But, you know, and of course, everybody gets so much paperwork at the beginning of the year
Right.
that it's hard to, you know, I know I have a packet
Right.
that probably gets put on a shelf and,
And also,
So-
you know, needs are not necessarily identified until halfway through the year.
right.
So it's really important to be able to have that information ready
Mhm.
easily
Yeah.
when parents are ready to
Well-
receive that information and learn about the child's needs.
Yeah, I mean, I've found that word of mouth is really the thing that gets the
Mhm.
people here. You know, hey, I went to this meeting and I learned a lot of things. You should come with me next time. You know, and so that's helpful. Or teachers saying, oh, are you aware that there's, because after the business portion of the meeting, we have what's called Uncommon Parents, which is kind of the parent support group. And again, it's really usually just the same, like 6 of us or 4 of us or 5 of us, you know. But that's a chance where the community leaders and school administrators leave, and then parents can really say, you know, they feel like they can speak a little bit more freely. And we found that a lot of times the parents, that's where they're, oh, we might not have been talking about that topic today, but we still have resources that we can share with you,
Mhm.
which is where a lot of that parent mentor, you know, kind of comes from. You know, it's just
Do you get a lot of traction on your Facebook page?
not as much as we should because we're not.
We're not, it's,
We're-
yeah.
Staying on
Yeah.
top of it. That's not my wheelhouse. So
Yeah,
yeah.
because I'm just thinking, I think back to when my kids were little and we were working with the special ed department. You know, it was so overwhelming to be getting all the information and at the same time working full time
Mhm.
and going through the emotions of everything that, you know, you're learning and picking up. That I'm just thinking what would have been helpful maybe back then would have been if I could have gone to a group and just put a question in, and then when I had time, go back and see if people had resources or had answers.
Mhm.
Because it's great to have that one-on-one or to have a cup of coffee, but to find parents that can actually connect in person.
Right. Well, one thing
Maybe
that
if
we always
it's-
do with our Facebook, we do have a snack messenger chat.
Mhm.
So we use that a lot. So before every meeting, or if there's any resources, if I find out about a resource, you know, which Deb will send me or Angela Knapp will send me, I will send that out to the group you know, and try to post it as well. But before every meeting, I'll say, don't forget we have the snack meeting. So
Mhm.
I feel like if people get the Facebook message, you know, that's when I get people responding saying, oh, I can come, or oh, I can't come. And people will say, I've got some piece of equipment that my kid's not using anymore. Does anybody want it? And, you know,
Right.
so that chat has been
Mm.
helpful, but people need to tell me they want to be on it. So, yeah.
And like anything else, it's hard to find a night when there's not like 3 other things going on, like a sports game
Exactly.
or a band performance
Yeah.
or something. So
Yeah,
We're
we had to
just so
cancel one of our
busy.
meetings with this. David Hayes, we had them all booked. He showed up, and there was a chorus concert, and there was nobody
Yeah,
who
there was
could.
something else,
Nobody
yeah.
came.
Yeah.
So grateful they were willing to come again the next month and
Yeah.
try again. But
Yeah. And then just my final question would be the cranial work. Is that done on the island?
yeah, she lives on island.
And
Yeah.
so does she have a private practice?
She does, yeah,
She does.
and
And
she-
what's her name again?
Priscilla Graham.
Priscilla Graham.
Yeah,
Okay.
and her children are in the I think she's got kids at a couple different schools, but she's got a bunch of.
Because the only
kids, so-
person I knew, and this I'm maybe outdated, was Paula McQuaid, who's so wonderful
Yeah.
in her practice,
Yeah.
but I hadn't heard of her
Yeah,
before.
she's one. I see her for myself. My husband sees her. She loves working with whole families because
Yeah.
she finds things that are similar in
Mhm.
different in family members, and it's been.
Well, anxiety, I
Yeah.
think, has touched almost every child, unfortunately, in every
Yeah.
family. So that's a great
Go see
resource.
Inside Out too. Anxiety is
so
one of the
good.
new emotions, and actually makes you feel anxiety because, you know, it's like her heart's in the right place, but then it goes about it wrong. And now, can we fix it? Can it be fixed in time? And you're like,
Is that playing? Is that playing?
it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is.
It is. Oh,
Yeah, just saw it
now
last night.
is it?
Yeah.
Let's
I
go.
saw it
Oh.
last night. It was great.
Oh, that's right. You did too. That's right. Well, that's great. Well, thank you. I also look forward to your updates every year, and I just thank you for still doing what you've been doing for years. You've both been in this for a long time, and you've both been advocates for kids ever since I've known you. So thank you for that. Yeah. Thank you. Any comments? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Great.
Thank you.
At this point, I'm going to hold off on Dr. Bosley just one moment because we have a little gift to give. Bruno, would you come, please? And just take a seat for just a moment. Would you like to?
I would be happy
Yeah,
to
go
start.
ahead.
So on behalf of the school committee, Bruna, we are so sad to see you go, but we are excited for you in your next endeavor. And we thank you from the bottom of our hearts for your time here with us. Your participation was very lively. We were happy to have you, and we loved having the updates that you provided every time we were together. And I wanted to just say that we are incredibly proud of you as well for what you were able to do this first year with the Seal of Biliteracy, and you achieved distinction, which is quite special.
Thank you.
So congratulations on that. And
Thanks.
congratulations for what's next for you.
What's ahead? Yeah.
So thank
miss
you.
Thank you.
So,
Love
And
this.
it's
Oh
good
my
to know.
gosh, it's
Yep,
mine.
we're in tag. So,
Wear it well.
yeah. We don't expect you to stay for the rest of the meeting, but we do.
Yeah,
How's,
I have
how's
to go.
everything going since
Good.
graduation?
Yeah. It was so weird to walk in here today.
Yeah.
I was like, oh,
No.
no.
Well, hopefully you'll get a little bit of downtime this summer before you head
Yeah.
off. But it's been a pleasure, as Dr. Hallett said. It's been a pleasure having you on the committee, and thank you for everything that you've brought to
It's
the
been a
table.
pleasure to participate. Thank you.
Terrific. All right.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Good night.
All right, Dr. Bosley, you make your moment. So we have Dr. Bosley, who's the Director of Curriculum for STEM. And is Miss Devitt here?
She's behind the
yeah.
podium.
See, I can't see. Okay. Miss Devitt, who's the Curriculum Director for Humanities. So welcome.
Thank you. So we are going to give an update this evening on our MAP, NWEA MAP data for both math and reading. Overall, what we want to do is kind of place MAP within our assessment system. We're going to talk about the context of what we've been doing in math, and then again in ELA, look at the data by school, and then talk about next steps. So in terms of an assessment system, first off, are you guys okay sitting there? Okay. At the top of the pyramid, we have the state, which drives the MCAS, and the purpose of that is to verify learning. So making sure that the districts are following the standards and that's being reported out on. Within a district, we monitor learning, and in Nantucket, we are using MAP NWEA and a few other forms of assessment to monitor the learning. Then when you get down into the classroom data, this is really what is supporting and planning the learning. So that's more around the unit lesson, the unit, end of unit exams, the quizzes, exit tickets, anything that's formative that's really going to inform what the teacher's next steps are going to be. So we're really focusing on the monitoring learning portion today. And we're going to talk about a few distinct data points here. So the first, and I'll show you these in context in just a minute. The first one is a growth percentile. So first off, we're focusing on percentile because percentile allows us to look at a norm. It allows us to compare to other students. In MAP, one of the great purposes of it is to compare to students across the country. So we're going to be looking at the growth percentile and the achievement percentile at the same time in the reports that we're looking at. So if we are meeting our growth percentiles over time, the achievement is going to follow, and that is going to increase. So it is imperative that we are meeting our growth targets. I think Becky in the fall, there you are, did a really good job of explaining in terms of MCAS, like how the importance of meeting those growth targets. So we'll come back to that again with the MCAS results. The norm is the 50th percentile, so we want to make sure that we're trying to get above the 50th percentile. That's our goal. And then the median, we are using the median growth and the median achievement. And at first I was like, why the median? Like the median's like when you line up all the numbers, right? You find the number that's in the middle. Like, why would you use the median instead of the mean, the average? And it's because a really high score or a really low score can throw off the mean. So we're looking at the median growth and the median achievement percentiles. All right, in terms of math, we've been on a journey. So this started in 2021-22, and we did a needs assessment across the district, and this included surveys, classroom visits, and focus groups. And out of that came a report, and we've been using that report to drive the direction of what we're doing. Beginning the next school year, we started with professional development, and that focused on the shifts in the education, math education practices, and then math workshop. And we began a curriculum review across the district. In 2023-24, this year, we continued our professional development. This is a huge piece of it, is just the continuing learning and doing cycles of improvement, right? Trying things out, learning things, reflecting on it, and then improving. And then we just have to keep the cycle of improvement going. So we looked at some curriculum support in terms of how to roll out the new curriculum and how to support teachers with that, and really around like guided math groups and math workshops. So we've been really trying to focus on those things. And then at the middle school, we continued the curriculum review, which I can talk about in a few minutes. I'll come back to that. We put that on hold for a year. And we also tried to look at intervention and what's going on in terms of our intervention in K-8. So the report that you're going to look at looks like this. And really what we want to see is up in the top right, we have the high achievement and high growth. That's our goal, is to get up there in that top right quadrant. But if we're getting above the 50th percentile, which is the horizontal axis, then we're doing really, that's our goal. We want to get above that horizontal axis. And then if we are moving to the right of the vertical axis, then that's also very positive because we're seeing higher growth. So top right quadrant is really what we're looking for. And then I just said this, the 50th percentile is the typical growth. So we want to try to be above the typical growth. So we're going to start with NES. This is the data from fall to spring. And you can see that we have NES as the school. We have kindergarten, we have first grade, we have second grade. So first grade is seeing the growth above the 50th percentile, and kindergarten and second grade are just right at the 50th percentile for achievement. So when I think about data, right, I start to think about and have wonderings around what it means and what questions do we need to start asking. So if we look at this graph that also comes with it, we can see that we still have 38% of the students are above the 61st percentile. That's a big improvement for us, which you'll see in just a second. So we are starting to move kids upward. We still have 29% of our students that aren't meeting the growth targets that are below the 20th percentile. So we need to think about what's going on there. And then I just can't help but wonder, we know that 30% of our kids are coming into kindergarten without preschool experience, and what does that impact on the achievement that's going on in the school? Over time, so I wanted to try to do 3 years, but I was having trouble pulling the data so quickly that we just finished collecting all of the map data last week, and some of it is still coming in now. So this didn't have time to do a really big dive to go back a few years. But this is 2 years. So this is showing growth from 23 to 24. And you can see the 3 grades and the school. And I have a trend line showing the upward trajectory that we are seeing in the 2 years. So we are moving in the right direction. And first grade actually decreased a little bit, but the growth is there. And I think that there could be a cohort issue. Like there's different nuances. If a grade doesn't have as much growth in the previous grade, they might have more growth in the next grade. So there could be some things at play there. But overall, they're seeing a lot of growth. In terms of NIS, you can see where we are. The school as a whole is up here in the high growth, high achievement. And the 3rd grade and 4th grade are up there as well. 5th grade is very close in terms of the high achievement. So we are moving in the right direction. We did have, so if you look overall at the data, you can see that we're seeing a shift more to the green and the blue, right? So 57% of the students are above the 61st percentile. So that, again, is a big improvement of what we've been seeing. And we have less students that are down and below the 20th percentile. We did introduce them using, one of the things that we've been using this year are math reference folders, which is a really good strategy to help the students be more independent, and then we teach them what they need to use out of the math reference folder. So we allowed them to use the math reference folder on the winter and the spring test. And so I also wanted to pull the data from just the winter to the spring so we could look at the growth there to see if that impacted anything. This is a little cycle of inquiry that we're doing, and we want to compare it to what happens with MCAS to see if this is something that we can move forward with or what our next steps are. So you can see we're still seeing growth for the school in the high growth, high achievement for the second half of the year. So I think that we're on the right track. And then you can see the overall growth across the grades for 2 years. And again, we have a positive trend line for all three grades. Moving on to CPS, CPS as a school is right here with grade 6. The 2 dots are very close together. Grade 8 saw tremendous growth this year, and grade 7 has come a long way. So we are again headed in the right direction, and you can see that the shift is towards more the green and the blue, which is what we want to see in terms of high growth. It brings up wonderings for me in terms of the red in terms of growth of intervention. One of our next steps for CPS is we have a 0.6 math interventionist next year, and so we're going to try to work on that piece of it. All right, and then again, we have a positive trend line for the direction that we're going across 2 years. And as a district as a whole, we're really working on this positive feedback loop and these cycles of inquiry and trying to improve what we're doing. This goal of collective efficacy is really important. And what I mean by collective efficacy is a group's shared belief in their capability to organize and execute the courses of action to produce the given levels of attainment. So we need to believe, when we as a group believe that we can do this, then the positive student outcomes are going to follow. And so our confidence is growing and the data is reflecting that. We have had a number of individuals, I just wanted to give a shout out to them, who have either in the past or this summer agreed to do an additional graduate course on math workshop. And so I just appreciate them taking time out of their vacation to dive in and do a little bit more work around this. And then in terms of next year, I added what our steps are going to be. We're really focusing on math fluency and again, guided math groups, which means that we're pulling students in small groups and we're doing intervention with them in the classroom. So we're meeting everybody's needs. So it doesn't matter if it's on the lower end or it's someone who is flying high, everybody is getting what they need in terms of the support. And then the other thing that we really need to work on is a district intervention plan and implementing intervention at the middle school. So before we go on,
Take questions?
do you want to ask any questions
I
around
think
math?
so, yeah. Well, it's fresh in our head. Tim?
Almost there.
Esmeralda?
I'm still trying to grasp all this information, so I'm good.
Laura?
Mandy, I'm just curious about the comment that you made about the readiness in terms of children that have gone to preschool versus those that have not. So it's not that skills are being taught. Do you think it's just, or are they being taught in preschool?
Preschool?
Mm-hmm.
They should be taught.
Mm-hmm.
They should be coming in with certain, there are pre-K standards that we have that in pathways that are taught in preschools across the state that are district preschools.
Mm-hmm.
But we have students who aren't in preschool.
Right.
And so those students are coming in and it's a wondering, it's what are they coming in with? Like, this is something that we need to investigate further, and what is the impact of that on the achievement?
Mm-hmm. Well, because we have a variety of preschools on the island, so you're going to see different levels. Do you feel like they catch up? I know that's a question you're thinking about, but do you feel like there is a point where they sort of get into the whole groove and then catch up to those that have already had preschool?
That is something we have to investigate.
Mhm.
I can't make a conjecture based
Yeah.
on.
That is something I'm curious about too. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mandy, remind me, these, the MAT test, is it a timed test?
No, and it's given 3 times a year. I didn't explain that either. It's in the fall, the winter, and then again in the spring. And we try to have about 18 weeks in between tests to show learning.
And I think you sort of just touched upon it, that you're really following each student's individual growth so that you have that information. Not only you're going by grade, but you can also pull out individual students so that you can see
Yes.
where they are on the graph, if you will,
Right.
as opposed to their grade.
So the purpose of this presentation was really to look at the district as a whole and what's going on at a higher level, but teachers can also go into their classes and look at similar reports and look at what standards students may need more support around and can use that. We also use it in terms of our intervention as a universal screener. So if a student is flagging for maybe being the lowest 25% or something like that, then we're going to try to implement intervention and do a number sense screener and do a little bit more detail around what's going on to try to support them.
Yeah, okay.
I do have one more question.
Yes.
Question I made through the chair. When were the standards last revised?
Oh, you're good.
I'm sorry. I'm not
I can answer that in, I just pulled it up today too. In science, it was 2016. In math, it was 2014 and then again in 2016.
So it's time.
Is
for
it Common Core? Anybody know?
I thought it was 2012.
2012.
2012.
It's a long time.
And then, but they redid the math ones after that, so it's around 2014 or 2016.
Thank
somewhere
you.
in there.
Still time.
I was close.
What was that?
17.
Thank you, Dawn.
The
2017.
team's out there Googling. That's great. Okay.
All right, so I'm
Thank you,
going to hand
Mandy.
this over to Melissa Devitt.
Before I start, I have to just say that I'm very lucky to be following Mandy because she has set this up for me to be able to work on ELA and really roll this out in a seamless fashion because she's already set the framework. So I do thank her for that. In previous districts, I've had to do this all on my own, so it's nice to have a partner for sure. So now we're looking at the reading data. And if you look at the first screen, this is NES, and you will see that they are all in the lower left quadrant, pretty close to each other for grade 1, grade K, and grade 2, and the whole school. You'll notice the next two are very similar to this. Why isn't it going? Oh, there it goes. Okay, and here is NIS, very similar to NES. And the last one is CPS, pretty similar with 7th grade over in the lower growth and higher achievement quadrant. So looking at that, we have a lot of work to do. I think that's a good baseline for our literacy work that we're going to be doing within the district. We have already started. So in January, we started with doing a core literacy committee, and it made up of educators across the district. So we had principals, we had teachers, we had special educators, and we had teachers, and we were working with the Hill for Literacy. So they came in and did a literacy assessment for us. That consisted of focus groups where they talked to every single person in the district in small groups. And then we did a roadmap survey where everybody was able to give their feedback. And then everybody in the district had the opportunity to participate in the needs assessment. Then they compiled all the data for us and gave it back to us. And then we reviewed that as a district literacy team, and then we reviewed the data in the elementary schools school-wide, and then we came together and we created a literacy plan, which we will show you in the future. I won't make you listen to that tonight. So we do have the needs assessment done, and we do have the literacy plan done, and now we have the baseline data to grow from. So the next steps are, the very first step that we need to do as a school district is we need to establish common terms for literacy. We are all over the place where we are agreeing on what is the science of reading, what is the MTSS process. So we are all over the place in what we understand about those concepts. So we really need to come to a common understanding of what we believe that is in Nantucket Public Schools based on what the state requirements are. And then in November, we're going to start building our building-based teams because literacy is a little bit different than math, that we need to look at specific grade levels differently than in math because there are so many different components of literacy. Not that there's not many different components of math, and Mandy always gets mad at me. We'll have our debate. But you know, literacy is just much different than math. And into December and March, we're going to just start exploring what's out there. What are other schools doing? What are people doing that is working? How can we identify where we need the most work? When we did our literacy assessment, it really wasn't based on what the curriculum we were doing. It was based on more of the procedures as a school district. What do we use? And now we know where the gaps are in the procedures. Now we can really drill down to the curriculum. And then in May and June, we really want to be able to be at the spot where we can create a PD plan, like a beautiful one like Mandy had set up, where we can offer professional development for teachers, where we can bring people in to help us understand the gaps that we're missing. And then I'm looking on to 25-26. That would be our first year of really doing PD, implementing curriculum, and looking at the landscape of intervention. We know that that's a place that's lacking in our district, and identify needs regarding what kind of supports do we need in the schools. Then moving on to 26-27, ongoing PD, asking teachers to lead their own PLCs. That's really coming from the teachers. They really want to be involved in the literacy process. we all know that if the teachers are buying into the programming and buying into what we're teaching, it's going to work. So they are really excited about starting that process. And then in that year, we'd be implementing some new resources if we need it, and then coming up with a district intervention plan, which will be following Mandy's plan. So we're not going to overwhelm people. Mandy's going on her 3rd year, where she's in a different spot, where I'm just starting. So by the time she ends, literacy will be just picking up, so we're not going to be dumping a lot of curriculum on teachers at the same time. And then in 27, 28, we should be able to just be doing ongoing PD, have the PLCs up and running, and then we are hoping that we can implement instructional coaches at that time. So the next steps, this is really district-wide. Some of this came from the literacy assessment, and some of this has just come from discussions throughout the DLT that we need to really focus on in the upcoming months and years. So the first one is benchmark assessments at NHS. If you go back to Mandy's triangle in the beginning, we're missing at the high school level. We're missing monitoring. So we don't really have any way to monitor the students at the high school, so we really need to look at that and see how we can make sure that we're monitoring the progress of the students. And then preparing all the students to meet the growth targets. If you're looking at growth, really all the students should be making growth from the beginning to the year, to the end of the year, and how are we ensuring that's happening? Coming up with a district intervention plan, which we have interventionists at the elementary level, but we do need to expand that. We're starting to expand it at the middle school for math, but we really need a robust intervention system, which would include instructional coaches. Also, a district-wide master schedule that would maximize what we have as resources already, and we would be able to use them. So if we are looking at master schedules, really they are the key to every school, because if you have a good master schedule, then we can plug the interventions or the resources in after the master schedule. And then again, how many times have I said this? Instructional coaches. That's another thing that we really need to prioritize. And then prioritizing equity during curriculum adoption. And that really is looking at what are we looking at curriculum and how is everybody getting exposed to that curriculum regardless of where they are. So making sure everyone is getting the core curriculum and everybody is understanding that, because tier 1 instruction is the most important. And then we break off into the intervention. And then expansion of kindergarten readiness. And I heard you asking some questions about that. That is just, how are the first 5 years impacting students in the school? We know that 30% of the kids aren't going to pre-K. And there's a difference between pre-K and daycare. And what is that difference? And what does that look like? And how do we know where they're all coming together into our kindergarten classrooms? And then exploring and partnering with community agencies to have wraparound supports for all of our students. Any questions?
Esmeralda.
No questions.
No questions? Okay.
I do have a few questions. How are high school students currently being assessed?
So if we think about the triangle, so they are being assessed through MCAS and classroom assessments, so summative assessments and formative in the classroom, but we don't do any monitoring, so they don't have the benchmark assessments 3 times a year.
But you do in the other schools,
Yes,
including CPS.
yes, yes.
And then one other question, is there still a silent reading portion of the day for where the kids engage in?
Yes.
It's a designated time?
Yes.
Across all the schools?
I know all the schools do it. I know that the high school teachers do it in the beginning of the class period, and the middle school does it a little bit differently, and then the elementary schools do it based on their classroom. So it's more of a reader's workshop model in the elementary schools, but yes, everybody has that opportunity.
Right. And I have one more question.
Sure.
Is summer reading still assigned?
It is not assigned. It is assigned to NIS. They have chosen their book, their school-wide book, and they also provide other books for them to read. The other schools are allowing the kids to choose. I know NES does the partnership with the library, and we are going to develop a summer reading ILT for next school year, because we really want it to be island-wide, and we want to have it to be like a scavenger hunt where kids are going to different places on the island and reading books and that connect to the community and allow for the community to have participation in that. We thought of that like in January, and then we were like, okay, we can't pull this off in this short amount of time, but I think that we're moving in the right direction with getting literacy really out in the
That's a
in the
great
open.
idea. And I hope you establish some community partners. through
Absolutely.
that.
They're very, everybody's very willing
Mm-hmm.
to partner with us, so
Sure.
we're lucky.
Great. Thank you.
Yep.
Just a comment. I'm really glad that we have the consistency from NES to CPS now, because I do think that's important. If I was a parent of a student in any of the 3 schools, and I'm hearing this report, what would you tell me if I'm concerned that it looks like the majority of the grade is in the lower left quadrant? What could you tell me that is happening next school year? Because I see what's happening, I see the future plan, but I think there will be questions as, okay, so we know this, what's happening September?
Right. Well, I think, first of all, and Mandy and I had a really in-depth conversation about this, because it is normed data. So we're being compared to the rest of the world. So the data is, why are we so much lower than the rest? We're bouncing back from COVID slower, it seems like, than other people. We got to stop using COVID as an excuse, but it's still there. You know, so I think what people are going to see is that the implementation, we started some implementation of some reading programs at NES this year, so it's only been the first year. So we're using Hegarty, and we're using where did it go? It left Hegarty and Foundations, and Foundations goes up into NIS too. So it was only the first year. You know, implementation takes at least 3 years to show growth, unless you're Mandy, and then it happens immediately. so that's kind of how it goes when you're implementing new things. And I think it's now what we're going to do is we're really going to focus on literacy and structures in the classroom. And I think that parents need to know that we really want to partner with them and make them understand how important it is for them to have their support at home. And also a piece that we didn't really talk about was the L population. And when you're looking at the L population, if they're the majority of the classroom, how are we meeting their needs and then differentiating off based on what the whole is? So kind of flipping the mindset of the core curriculum for the L's needs to happen, and then branch off into the other students, so that we're making sure that we're using the most best use of our time. Any of the principals want to? No?
But I love the parent communication, because I think certainly in the early years, it's really the parent who's reading to the child and formulating letters and all of that. So, and some parents need guidance on that. If you know, it's not necessarily something how they were brought up. So I'm glad that we're sort of working in partnership with families.
Yeah, we need to think out of the box a little bit. I think that, and always around literacy, there's tons and tons of opinions. So, you know, that's why it's a little bit slower, that we need to make sure that everybody has a voice and everybody is thinking about, you know, what's best for kids. Like, this is what we know, and we know that as a teacher, if you get stuck, you always go back to how you were taught, right? So that's, you know, we're going to have to really support teachers to make sure that they have everything they need to make it successful.
I'm not going to ask you for it tonight, and I don't know if you have it, but it'd be interesting to know for families whose children are being brought up bilingual, how that plays out in English as a second language and being tested, because it's hard enough to learn one language, and I wonder how many students are, as they go through the schools, are learning 2 languages at the same time.
Right.
And
Barbara probably knows. Do you know that statistic, Barbara?
I think that's a longer discussion.
Okay.
Because they're not always biliterate.
Yes. Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
a lot of context.
Yeah. I just was just thinking,
Yeah.
just on top of all of that, that's a hefty lift.
Right.
All right. Any comments, Tim? No?
I would, if I may. So I just want to thank Mandy and Melissa for all the work that they've done, and also the principals. This is an assessment that does take place in the schools, and it does take time. and it is important. We need to be utilizing this for part of our planning and part of where we're headed and how we can establish high expectations for our students and our teachers so that we are doing what's right by students. We knew and know that literacy is an area of need. It is not just us. It is in many districts across the state. And there is, as you may be aware, there is legislation out there that is considering basically some regulation around literacy. And so we'll be following what the state is expecting of us. This is one of the first times that the state is getting involved with literacy or with specifics because they have seen such a low literacy rate in our students over the last several years. So there's been a need, at least on their side, to bring it into play. But we will do what is right for our students and certainly keep those expectations high. We should be seeing better growth. There's no question. Growth is important, and everyone should be growing from one test administration to the next. So now we need to look at why perhaps that is not happening and how we can put the supports in place for the students and for the teachers in pushing that growth. So,
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you.
Melissa and Mandy. Oops. All right, moving on to our athletics annual report. Matthew Hunt, because I don't see any.
Yes.
Okay, so Matthew will be presenting for everybody. Good evening.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hello. Travis Lombardi was unable to make it this evening, so I'll be presenting on behalf. I don't know what my password is. Perfect. All right. Good evening. Thank you all for the opportunity to share a quick report on this past year. I'll be touching on some of our athletic department's achievements, challenges, and improvements. This year has definitely been one for the books. Our student athletes have shown some incredible growth, sportsmanship, passion, and dedication throughout this past year. And I know I can speak for Travis when I say we're extremely proud of our students and coaches. Just as many departments throughout our district, Travis and I were faced with many challenges involving transportation, Nantucket weather conditions, official shortages, just to name a few. I want to express our gratitude and appreciation for our student athletes, coaches, families, and community for their patience and perseverance throughout our 3 seasons as we worked through those hurdles. As you'll see in a few slides, Nantucket Athletics had 14 teams qualify for state tournament play, 85 athletes received Cape and Island League All-Star Awards, 5 athletes received MVP honors, and on top of that we had 1 student athlete named All-State Honorable Mention by the Eastern Massachusetts Girls Lacrosse Coaches Association, and another student named All-State and All-American by the Eastern Massachusetts Girls Lacrosse Coaches Association. We'll be presenting these incredible accomplishments and more to our student athletes at our upcoming awards ceremony on Thursday at 6 p.m. in the NHS auditorium. We hope to see some of you there. This year started off right where last year left off. Our participation numbers were high, event attendance were through the roof, and event environments, for lack of a better term, were electric. I'm sure many of you had the opportunity to experience some of these atmospheres. They were truly amazing. Travis and I couldn't be happier when reflecting on the sense of community and Whaler pride shown throughout this year. And this was shown in full force this past Saturday, before, during, and after our boys lacrosse team won the D4 state championship. It started with breakfast sandwiches donated by Stubbies, an escort out of the harbor by the harbor master and U.S. Coast Guard crews, an awesome crowd at the game, and a huge celebration and parade as the boys arrived back on Nantucket. It was a great way to end the year. Dr. Hallett had me do some digging for a separate matter, but the info I found for her was pretty interesting. Our athletic year started back on August 18th with our first game on August 24th. Between August 24th and this past Saturday, June 15th, which is 296 days, we had 708 athletic contests, 588 at the high school level and 120 at the middle school level. Out of those 708 events, 341 were home and 367 were away. 351 out of our 588 students in the high school played at least one sport. That's 60% participation. And 193 out of 363 students in the middle school played at least one sport. That's 53% participation. We think those are pretty impressive numbers. Before diving into specifics, I'd like to give a huge thank you shout out to high school and CPS admin, faculty, and staff for their continued support, flexibility, and dedication to our student athletes and our athletic department. Travis always likes to give me nice shout outs, so it's my turn. And unfortunately, he's not here to hear me, but I'll make sure he knows it. Travis might be the most dedicated person I've ever met. The time, energy, effort, and emotion he puts into not only Whaler athletics, but to his family, the Nantucket community, and just about everything else he has going on is truly admirable. Not many people fully understand what goes on a daily basis in our office, but it can be unpredictable, hectic, and head-spinning to say the least. Somehow he keeps our department straight and on track. I'm very fortunate to work alongside him and learn from him day in and day out. We're lucky to have him. That being said, as you can see, our participation numbers are still high. We love seeing steady numbers across the board. We're still in a position where we need to hold tryouts and make cuts in a few programs. And we're doing as much as we can to allow everyone a chance to play, but in some cases our hands are tied, whether it be limitations with coaching, supervision, space, scheduling, etc. So for the fall, as you can see, we had 237 total student athletes with 8 sports offered for the high school. For CPS, we had 167 student athletes with 6 sports offered. Winter, 154 high school athletes, 41 CPS athletes. Spring, 185 student athletes for the high school and 66 for CPS. Looking at the fall, we had a good amount of teams qualify for the state tournament. Caroline Allen was one of our field hockey athletes. She was named Cape and Islands League Lighthouse Division MVP. And our golf team had their highest finish in program history, placing 4th at the D3 state tournament. And then you can see we had a number of all-stars in the fall. For the winter, again, we had a good amount of teams qualify for postseason play. Maddie Lombardi was named Cape and Islands League Girls Basketball MVP. Ryan Davis was named Cape and Islands League Boys Hockey MVP. Boys basketball competed against Martha's Vineyard in the Andrew Lawson Foundational Invitational at the TD Garden and won. That was probably one of the best things that we got to experience for the kids. It was super cool. I unfortunately wasn't able to go, but just seeing pictures, videos, and hearing stories from the kids, we heard crazy things about it. We had 2 track and field athletes represent Nantucket in the D5 state meet in their inaugural season as a varsity program, and we had 8 swim and dive athletes represent Nantucket at the D2 state meet. And then again, a few winter all-stars. That's a picture of the boys after their game at the Garden. Oh, I'm sorry. I made a few updates to my PowerPoint, so for those of you looking at it on paper, it might be a little bit different. Nothing too much, just a few pictures that I thought would be important. And for the spring, again, we had a good amount of teams qualify for the state tournament. Girls lacrosse advanced to the Elite 8. Saren Chrysler was named Cape and Islands League Softball MVP. Bailey Lower was named Cape and Islands League Girls Lacrosse MVP. And as I mentioned a little bit earlier, our boys lacrosse team won the D4 state championship this past Saturday. They beat the number 3 seed Sandwich 7-6, and that was, again, another incredible moment of this year. Myself and Travis were able to go, and it was awesome. Again, a few more Cape and Islands League All-Stars. That's a picture of the boys after their game. And if any of you guys are able to keep up on social media, a lot of our high school students that have gotten into photography and videography, they're starting to post some videos here and there. I'm doing my best to share what I can on our Whalers Instagram. And then we also had a few just independent freelancers, I guess, that were also at the game. So they're starting to post some stuff too. So you may start to notice a few videos and whatnot. A few donations and gifts from or given to the athletic department. We had a $2,750 donated amount from the Gary Da Silva Golf Tournament to benefit our golf program. The Nantucket Police Charitable Association donated a skate sharpener for the girls hockey team. Tom Hanlon and Hanlon Landscaping and Paul Kernan, they donated time, labor, and materials and resodded the middle of the softball field, which was huge. That gets pretty beat up after football season, so it was nice to have that ready to go for football and then our spring sports. And then our field house renovation was completed in March, and those are 2 pictures of the renovated field house with a group of individuals who donated, again, their time, energy, effort, and supplies. A few accomplishments, additions, improvements. We had 2 new programs added in the winter. We had a varsity indoor track and field team, which was a club team last year. So that was really cool to get them kind of off the ground and running. Huge shout out to high school guidance counselor Chris Mimic. He really just ran with this program and did a ton, took a lot off of our plate to make this happen. We also, going back to me saying our participation numbers are high, we added a Cape Cod Youth Basketball League team for our CPS basketball boys team, just to allow another level of play for some athletes, that just to hold more team spots, I guess. And they had a great year. They won their league, so that was really cool. A few first-year varsity head coaches: Andrew McNeely, girls ice hockey; Dylan Jones, swimming and diving; and Chris Mimic, going back to indoor track and field. Some player accomplishments: Vicky Todorova, she was the Massachusetts Volleyball Coaches Association All-State Selection. Rodane Watson was Eastern Massachusetts Soccer Coaches Association All-Star. And then going back to what I mentioned earlier, Bailey Lower, she earned All-American and All-State honors. Some player milestones: Vicky Todorova recorded her 100th career dig on October 16th. She is unbelievable as a libero. She's a lot of fun to watch. Bailey Lower scored a career high, or a career total of 638 points, which is a school record. Bailey, for those of you who don't know, is going on to play at Vanderbilt University next year. She's also an incredible athlete and a lot of fun to watch. A few more things. We started a new tradition with boys and girls soccer, field hockey, and we wanted to kind of add a Island Cup sort of feel to fall sports, and we are going to expand this into winter and spring sports this upcoming year. But Travis and Martha's Vineyard AD Mark McCarthy did a really good job at coming up with this idea. So this is called the Golden Anchor, and when the Vineyard comes here and or when we go there for our homecoming, it will be decided between Travis and Mark which game is labeled as the Golden Anchor game, and the winner of that game is given the Golden Anchor for the year. So we thought that was a really cool addition, kind of share the Island Cup love with all of the other teams. We've offered first aid and CPR classes for all of our coaches. We require all of our coaches, paid and volunteer, to take the MIA Fundamentals of Coaching. And we installed Insight Analytics into our football helmets. I know Travis touched on that last year, talking about our donations. We had a donor donate just under $40,000 for all new helmets. And then in that, we were able to add Insight Analytics, which is like an all-encompassing sensor that links to a device that links to an app, and it's just another tool that we can use to measure impact, help coaches kind of plan and see who's taking a little bit more impact, who's not, who might need to change some technique, or if the coach needs to change his plan of attack. So we experimented with that a lot this past fall, and we're really confident moving forward that we'll use that a lot. And we have more people than we have 1,000,001 people to thank, but this is just a list of most of the people that we could think of, and I apologize if we forgot you, but please know that we do thank you from the bottom of our hearts for all of your support for us and our department and our student athletes. And other than that, does anybody have any questions?
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
How
Tim.
come you didn't mention the new football coach?
Oh, you're right. I did miss that. We do have a new football coach. His name is Corice Everett. He's starting this fall. We hired him a few months ago. He's bringing some great young energy already. The kids are really loving him. I don't know if you guys were in this building earlier, but there were a few kids running stairs for about a half an hour, and then in the weight room for another hour and a half after that. So they're hitting the ground running. They're ready for fall already.
And I had spoken to you about a tackling dummy. Has anybody followed up on that?
We haven't looked into that yet, but I'm hoping now with our quiet time we can start to look into some of this extra stuff for the fall.
And where do the indoor track people run?
A lot of their meets were at Wheaton College.
Yeah, but where do they train?
In the hallways, in the cardio room. They were outside most days. Any day that they could get outside, they went outside. Yeah, Chris Mimic was a mastermind behind all of it. He planned a lot between weight room workouts, cardio room workouts, and then whatever they're doing outside. But they ran their meets at Wheaton College and the Reggie Lewis Center.
Okay.
Esmeralda.
I have no questions. Just great work.
Thank you so much.
I don't have any questions either, but you have a lot to be proud of. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, what a ton of accomplishments. Going kind of piggybacking off of what Dr. Lepre asked around the track, do our students practice on the track, on the track around the football field? Is that runnable or not?
They will. It is. They'll use it. It's a funky distance. It's not a true 400 meters around. So for him to kind of plan track workouts, it's a little difficult because he has to go out there and measure it and find whatever the exact distance that he wants to do. But they'll definitely do workouts out there.
And I know it's in discussion of trying to improve our grounds for that particular sport. It's amazing what you all pull off, and I know that the time, the hours that you put in is incredible, and we're very lucky to have the whole team, the whole staff, and so thank you for that.
Thank you.
And we have a lot to be proud of.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Matt.
Congratulations again.
If I may, through the
Mhm.
chair. Just thank you to you and Travis. The athletic department continues to be very successful, and I appreciate it. And I also appreciate the data that you shared about the number of trips that we take to and from the mainland, and how important it is. Our sports program is incredibly important to the well-being of our students, and so I hope we keep that in mind as we move forward around potential changes to that.
Indeed.
Just one last comment. I don't know if you can just share the recording of the commentary from the lacrosse game on Saturday. I was listening with somebody and they didn't realize it was the Nantucket comedy. So they're like, these guys are really biased because these guys were so excited and they were just all for Nantucket. And I said, I think it's just the Nantucket commentators that you're getting to hear. But it was just so fun to listen to for the game and the excitement. But Chris Morrison, I'm forgetting who the other person was who was commentating. It was hysterical.
NCTV and Chris Morris and his team, they do a really good job at being biased to as the best of their ability, but I think in that game it was hard to not show a little bit of bias.
It was fabulous.
I have one more question, Paula.
Yeah.
How sweet was it to shoot down Sandwich
That was
after they
Yeah.
hurt us in hockey
Yep.
It was great.
It was
Did somebody
great.
remind that
Sweet,
kid
come on.
that said Nantucket's going to be easy to beat?
Yeah.
Did somebody take the kid aside?
Tim.
If they did, I've looked the other way.
We don't wanna hear.
I can't say yes or no. No, I'm just kidding. But no, and a lot of our lacrosse players are hockey players, so I think they really took this season to heart and saw what they had, and then I guess missed out on in the winter, and just used it to fuel their fire. So it was really cool to see them do that.
Made it all the much sweeter, right?
Yep.
That's great. Okay, thank you.
Thank
you, guys.
Thank you so much. All right, moving on to committee discussions and votes to be taken. May I have a motion to accept the meeting minutes of May 14th?
So move.
May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. May I have an approval for the donation from Nantucket Land and Water Council to NIS Grade 5 Camp Bornedale field trip for $2,500?
So move.
I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. May I have an approval, please, for the Cape Cod 5 to Nantucket High School credit for life fare for $1,000?
Move.
May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. May I have an approval for the donation from Nantucket Education Trust to Nantucket High School Music Department for $500?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. May I have an approval, please, for the donation from the Nantucket Wine and Food Festival to the Nantucket High School Culinary Department for $5,000?
So move.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. May I have an approval, please, for the donation from the Nantucket Education Trust to Nantucket Public Schools for the reimbursement of the solar eclipse glasses for $2,112.59?
So moved.
May I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. May I have an approval for the 2024 to 2027 Facilities and Grounds Collective Bargaining Agreement?
So move.
May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you for everybody that was involved
Mm-hmm.
with the negotiation. May I have an approval for the transfers and invoices?
So move.
May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Wow, a lot of donations.
Indeed.
Wonderful. Subcommittee work.
Collective bargaining group hammered it out.
That's great. And it's lovely to get it in before the end of school. So thank you for everybody that was involved in that.
Beth did a tremendous job.
For Cape Cod Collaborative, they are looking into some equipment for us, some buses, and so we're seeking approval for that. So that was an interesting meeting. And for Nantucket Education Trust, we had a really fun barbecue, and it was a blast. And it was, and I got to see meet some teachers that I haven't seen outside of, the school. So it was a lovely night, and Rocky Fox secured Snick Snack, so there was ribs, and it was a lovely event. It was really nice, and I really feel like the Cow Pond residents had fun. So Martin was there too.
Great.
It was really fun.
Our next meeting, we're having a summer retreat.
Yes. July 23rd is our summer retreat, and I will certainly be getting information to you upcoming around the agenda, and look forward to having some time with you to do some retreating. So
Retreating. So is that our next meeting?
yes.
Wow. Okay.
I just have a funny feeling about that date, and I don't know what it is.
I know, I was just checking my calendar as well. It's the
What day of
full-
the week it
it's
is?
It's a Tuesday, so we would have been,
I think it's fine. I'll have to look.
okay.
We can certainly discuss this.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, if there's no other comments, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So
May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everybody.